Captain Fatfinger strikes again. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I did it again. I fucked it up, as they say in French. So coming back to what I'm saying, part two of is, are we living in a simulation versus are we AI, or are we simple prompts? And we're gonna check out the prompt theory. I think I'm gonna do it tomorrow or today, I don't know. Depends on how much I have to work. So today I only have to work on Trailer Park Boys, which is about 10 episodes, which is about 7 minutes each, which is 70 minutes, which is not that bad. I'm gonna put on the batteries also. So all of this to say, with Alice in Wonderland, she's in this reality, right? But the question in Alice in Wonderland is, what if this was real? What if the world you were used to was a fake world? There's always this question of, did you fall into a hole? And that hole was a opening to another dimension. But what dimension is yours, right? And Alice in Wonderland also explores something called the multiverse, or something called different timeline, or quantum theory. The quantum theory is the possibility of multiple timeline existing, and multiple timeline existing. In the timeline, I'm a woman. In the timeline, live in another country, right? And it's a different timeline, and they're all from the same place. And the beautiful thing with Alice in Wonderland and this theory of the multiverse is, how are they different? Technically speaking, DNA-wise, advanced in French, DNA-wise, I'm the same person, right? I would have the same parents, right? So I would be the same, which is nature versus nurture. How much does the surrounding affects me, right? And if we talk about a different universe, for example, are we living on a planet called Mars, which is a lot hotter, right? Are we Martians? There's so much in here, but the big plot of it is, she falls into a hole and she has this new reality. And the question is, did she ever make it out? So a movie that have been part of the culture, like Coraline, they explore the exact same thing, right? Then the funny thing is, my favorite game, Majora's Mask, is he falls into this hole and then he ends up in Termina. Termina uses the same character. So, oh my god, this is beautiful. This is fucking phenomenal. So, Termina, what it does is, on paper, it's a alternate reality to Hyrule, which is the name of the planet. The name, it's not a planet, I'm so sorry. It's the name of, like, the world you visit. And Ocarina of Time, which technically is not true. We got the Hyrule, we had the Hyrule Field, we have Ikana, we have the Goro Valley, we have Kakashi Village. It's been so long that I played this. Kakariko Village, we have the Death Mountain, we have the Goron Cave, we have the Zora Temple, we have the Zoras, right? So we're using every single one of the same characters. So in this case, Link falls into a hole, right? So a lot of people say Link is dead, and Majora's Mask is such a dark game, right? But what if the hole was just like Borderland, Alice in Wonderland? Maybe that's what it was, right? And maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was always about that. Maybe it was always about the fact that this is an alternate reality. What is the real reality? Zelda, Ocarina of Time, or Zelda Majora's Mask? And it's the same characters, right? The same NPCs, right? A different villain, but everybody's the same, right? Except for Zelda, it's not in the game. Actually, it's really cool. I actually really like that. However, it comes with a problem. The reality of it is because Ocarina of Time was so good. But the company behind Zelda, not Nintendo, but the company that was working on it, said, we put in so much effort for the 3D model, we put in so much effort for the Ocarina of Time, we don't know if we want to make another, we don't know if we're going to be able to make another game before the GameCube comes out. The GameCube, which was the next in line for Nintendo. So then they reuse every single NPC. That way they didn't have to work on the NPC. They use a lot of the same characteristics, so the way you move, the way you jump. Epona is the same. The Ocarina is the same. A lot of the songs are the same. A lot of the weapons are the same. We have the hookshot, we have the bow. And yes, the design of said weapon does change. We have the Eye of Truth, the bottle, the different arrows. Right? It's different, but it's the same, right? And then let's come back to reality. The Wonderland is amazing, and to be honest, it's such a simple concept. From um, this is I sound crazy, and possibly I am, but who gives a shit? Possibly see, it's nuts because even when you look at Truman Show, right? It was a controlled reality. It wasn't AI and everything, right? And we, as I was younger, maybe this is different. I was born in the '90s, but I've always heard like, "Oh, this is fate. This is fate. This is the will of God." And even I'm watching this TikTok couple, and they're really cool. They get a family. Get a family. They have these kids, Charlie and AJ. The name of I think it's Ariel Getter and Austin Getter. Amazing couple, and they're really religious, right? And it's funny because they have this daughter, and this daughter, I think she's 4 or 5, right? So she's starting to understand life. She's starting to be having her own opinion. So then, when something happened, and there's a specific video. There's this really specific video where she's pretending to be like a cook, and Austin's like, "There's our father. Like, give me everything on the menu." And then they gave everything on the menu, and then Austin said, "How much do I owe you?" And Charlie says a really small amount, right? So as a kid, you don't know the value of cash. But then Austin's like, "How can you afford all of this, right? How can you afford all of this, but not charge more than that?" And Charlie, again a child, says, "I guess the Lord provide." And to me, that was so meaningful because this is how much she believes in it, right? This is how much she believes in it, and this is her perception. Even a kid understands that they're saying that she can't control. That's something that will be provided by life in itself. If it's God, it's God. If it's life, it's life. Which again, I think is really powerful. But it's more than that. It's more than just that. So in the case of Charlie, she's religious, right? But take somebody else. Take somebody else and say, give me a second. I'm gonna give an example out of. Yeah, it's a bit more complex. What can I give an example out of? Poof, I didn't think about that. A gambler that goes to gamble and say, "Well, my luck will turn." Is luck really real? Right? Is it something that's calculated? Is it a prompt? Right? There's something kind of cool. The prompt theory, the way I understood it was all 1 and 0, which when you see the matrix, it's all 1 and 0 that path. 1 is yes, 0 is no. So you'll have a bunch of events in your life, right, which is a code, and you'll have a 0 and a 1. Are you going to be positive or negative about it? With religion, and even as a kid, I always understood that's it's so, because I don't want to offend people. See, the Vikings, right? They had the Nordic mythology, so a lot of people are familiar with the Greek mythology, but where it's really at, the real like beauty of mythology to me is Norse mythology, because in mythology there's more God, but there's also more story. So if you wanted to teach lesson to a kid, if you want to teach life to a kid, you'd use a mythology. For example, there's a thunder. This is Thor, right? And everything could be explained by an act of a god, not God, but a god. In different religion. Am I religious myself, and do I believe in God? I believe that everybody has a point that's right. I feel like the Quran has something that's right, the Bible has something that's right, the Torah has something that's right, the Hinduism has something that's right, the Buddhism has something that's right? Everybody has something that's right. But if good exists, evil also exists, right? If good exists, evil also exists, and evil says, "You know what, fuck you. I'll make sure that everybody's fighting." If we came together, we would find the truth, but now everybody is fighting. For example, Palestine and Gaza, which the Muslim and the Jews, right? But then there's something better than that. If there's the good and the evil, right? There's some force of good, there's some force of evil. There's also more than that. So, for example, I was talking about the prompt, which is 0 and 1. So, for example, if 0 is no and 1 is yes, then you would have good, which is 1. You would have evil, that is 0. It's also a positive and negative, right? And then, in a fucked up sense, it's a balance, right? It's a balance. What if the balance was? Oh, I died now. What if the balance was the very very simple act of well, I can't only put I have to put some zeros. What if I had a quota of I's to put in and a quota of zeros to put in? I'm saying I's, but it's one. It's not I, it's one. And to me, this is phenomenal. What if the simulation? And to me, as a kid, I was like, okay, well, God is watching. God is watching. My parents used to tell me that, and it's so funny because with ADHD, I didn't pay attention in Bible class. So when I was a kid, my understanding was, I know God is real. I know He's watching over me. I know that if I'm not nice, I'll go to hell. If I'm nice, I'll go to heaven. But I didn't understand who was God. I didn't understand what He meant, what meant religion, what religion meant, right? So I would just be fearful. And even then, my father would give me shit, right? And my father would give me shit, and I wouldn't remember what he said. I remember what was lesson. He would give me shit, and I remember being in trouble, but I wouldn't remember why, right? And to me, this is also called like a simulation, because what if I think one of the systems that explains it the best is the good place. The good place was saying the good place, which is phenomenal, is very smart. But the good place in itself, what it does is, they said how to go to hell and how to go to heaven, right? And the good place, they said, well, everybody starts at zero. If you do something good, you're at one. If you do something bad, you're at zero. You're at -1, right? And at the end, what they do is, do you have more point or less point than zero? If you have more points, you go to heaven. If you have less points, you go to hell, right? Or what they would do in mythology, which we saw in Sandman on Netflix, they would put a balance, and they would put your heart, right? And it would put a feather. Now this one is different. It stipulates that if your heart is pure and if your heart is full of good intention, your heart should be lighter than a feather. And if your heart is lighter than a feather, you're a good person, right? But all in all, it's not up to you. If we live in a simulation, I think the problem we have with living in a situation is we think that somebody was controlling us, right? What if it was just a scenario? What if it was just a bit of prompt? I thought something, and again, I'm going to be offending a lot of people. That is not the case. That is not the goal, right? Please understand this. I saw something that blew my fucking mind. So I was born in the 90s, right? I love Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I absolutely love Pokemon. The first game in Pokemon was Red and Blue. Red is a game that is now 30 years old, super simple to emulate, super simple to use. There's a programmer. He's a programmer. I don't know who he is, but he did a AI set. So he did 30. I don't remember if it's 30. I think it's more than that. Let's say 50, just to be safe. He did 50 different playthrough of Pokemon Red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all had the same starting point. They all had the ending point. What they would do is it's so complex. What they would do is they would play the game as AI. So they would learn the game. So for example, if I go against this guy by using this Pokemon, I'll die. Or if I go here, there's a wall, I'm not gonna be able to move. And this 50 playthrough shared a hive mind. With the hive mind, they had learned lesson, learned mistake, right? And at the end, the game was completely won by AI. Now this is a game that was 30 years old. It's a game that's simple, but this is kind of crazy, right? Even in Naruto, I was talking about Naruto before. I've been watching Naruto again. What if Naruto has one of these Shadow Clone Jutsu, which is multiplying himself, right? Now the craziest thing is, yes, it's a fucking show, but multiplying yourself would be multiplying your consciousness. So your ability to learn lesson, right? Your ability to learn lesson, and then the ability to learn lesson taught him something. So for example, he wants to learn this new technique. So he has at 100,000 clones, and they all learn something. What if that was the goal of the simulation? People think that we're pawns in a game, and people are simulating us to live. Even a game like Sims is absolutely super realist. So for example, you can have a guy that goes to job. If you don't clean yourself, if you don't do XYZ, he's not gonna do what he needs to do. But in itself, the nicest thing about the Sims is that you live this life, right? And you have kids, and you die, of course, but still. And it's all about this. It's all about, I want to live this lifetime, right? What if the goal of simulation was just to recover information? What if we were trying to understand life, right? How crazy would it be? And then the question is, does it really matters? Does it really matters? I live in a simulation. As long as I'm having fun, as long as I'm feeling emotion, even if it's fake, even if it's not real, if I'm feeling emotion, then that's worth it, right? I think we're going back to Truman Show. Truman Show, the whole life that he had was a script. The whole life that he had was control. The whole life that he had was, there's even a scene, and it's so fucking funny. He goes to his workplace, right? And there's a scene where he decides to go somewhere else, and the bridge is not built because but that's the funniest, and this is the ending. And at the end, the Truman Show I think is the best. The Truman Show I think is some of the best we talk about it, because again it's Alice in Wonderland. It's a simulated reality. At the end, Truman finds the door to leave, right? And then he has the director. The director said, Truman, do you really want to leave? I give you a thing that you want. I give you a thing that you need. The world out there is dangerous. I'll give you a safe place, right? I give you a safe place. And even if you look at the Bible, because I was raised Christian. I don't remember if I was raised Christian or Catalyst. I never remember. But it was the Garden of Eden. It was the Garden of Eden. And with Truman, he said, you have a safe place. You have your life here. You have your own reality here, right? Would you really change? And this is kind of a god. It's not God per se, but it's kind of a god, because it's in control of everything, right? And I don't know. To me, this is so meaningful. This is so fucking meaningful, right? I don't know. My favorite game ever is Elden Ring. And this is the exact same thing. Elden Ring, we had this god, right, which is Marika. And Marika, she rules over the world, right? She rules over the world, and she's in charge of everything. She is responsible for the Elden Ring, which is the survival of the Earth Tree, which is the Earth Tree is the thing that gives life to everybody, right? The main bad guy in Elden Ring is Ronnie. Ronnie comes in. So Marika is, okay, so it's a god that's dying. Ronnie is supposed to replace her, right? Ronnie is supposed to replace her, but Ronnie's like, no, I'm not going to be a slave to you. I want to do what I want, right? What she does is she breaks that, she kills somebody, which leads to the breaking of the ring, right? Now, the greatest thing about it, the absolute greatest thing about it is Rani whole goal. So can you follow her quest line? And if you follow her and you help her out, she'll be the next Elden Lord. And her Elden Lord, the way she works, so it's complex. It's really complex. Oh my god. So yes, Marika is a god, but it's something called the Greater Will. The Greater Will is these two fingers, right? It's so fucking complex. So fucking complex. But long story short, what she does is Ronnie, she's like, no, we're not gonna be slaves. We're gonna be having our own free will. So she gives people their own free will. But to finish with this, because I'm going XYZ, I think the most important thing about doing a simulation doesn't matter. As long as we live something, as long as we're feeling some emotion, as long as we believe that it's real, as long as we're having some good moments, some bad moments, as long as we have a beautiful life, as long as we have children, right? We kind of win at life. And when you win at life, even if it's not real life, and even if you didn't really win, the simple perception of winning makes you happy. And if you're happy, who gives a shit, right? If this life is a simulation, but I'm happy, it's fair. I think it's more, the problem would be, morally speaking. For example, these people that have a shitty life, the only reason that they have a shitty life is because, so for example, I don't want to be a dick, oh my god. They live in another country, they have a missing limb. Limb, they're neurodivergent, they have mental issues. And it just pushes them to be like, yo, my life is shitty, right? Even on a race scale, racism was really rampant in the 1800s. Imagine if it's a simulation, right? And you get to decide if you're born white or black. There's other races, but I'm just saying. And the fact that you're born black automatically means that you might get enslaved and shit like that. It's horrible, you know? So the simulation is actually really, really sad. just like in every situation, there's some winner, there's some loser, right? If you're winning, a lot of people like say, who cares if it's simulation or not? We're gonna have a good life, right? But then at the same time, I think it's the same for religion. I saw people, and I'm not judging, but I saw people that the second that something was not going right, they were blaming God and say, God help me, God help me. Without trying to figure the situation out themselves, they're asking for help from God, right? Which is up to you, absolutely. But at the same time, you have to learn from your mistake. You have to learn from an event. If you live through an event and you don't learn shit from it, what's the point, right? For example, you fall, right? As a kid, you fall, and then you get back up, right? And you're like, okay, well, if I fall, I get back up. But if you fall and you ask for God help, right? But then, at the same time, I saw people which religion and belief and piousness got them through life. They had this terrible event happen to them and say, you know what? The Lord will provide. The Lord will provide a solution. And it gave them hope, and they were able to maintain their sanity for long enough to the situation to solve itself. And that is beautiful. That is beautiful. At the end, it doesn't matter who solved the situation. That you're still okay, it doesn't matter, right? Or if you look at the crusade, the crusade, right? The crusade is in French. The crusade, the number of atrocity that was made to religion. I watched one of my favorite movie ever is Dante's Inferno, right? And Dante's Inferno is also akin. And I know what you're saying, dude, this is not the same subject, but it is. It is. It is a perceived reality. It is perceived reality, and that's exactly what they're talking about. So with Dante is a religious knight, right? And he has this mission, right? Which is to kill the oh my god, this is gonna sound horrible, but it's to kill the people that don't believe, right? So what happened is Dante does atrocity, right? He commits a lot of crime, right? Which is really bad crime. Like he rape, he eats a lot of gluttony, he steals. Every single sin out of the 7 sins, he does them, right? But at the beginning of the movie, which we see only at the end, is he did all of this, yes. But then you see that a priest was like, hey, whatever you do, God will forgive you. You'll have access to heaven, right? Which is nuts. When you look at Islam culture, in Islam culture, they say this is what halal want. This is what not Islam. So it's very different. And Islam is the Muslim, right? And there's just the extremist jihadists. And the nicest thing about the Muslim is that when there was attack from jihadists of extremists, they're like, yo, we don't condone that. There's not the same thing. I think we automatically put everybody in the same circle. Oh, you follow this religion? Oh, you're the same as them. No. And if you look at, see, that's the thing. I'm going to talk about Muslim in general. Some Muslim that I had, that I met, some of the nicest people. Very, 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 very generous. Very generous. But some of them were not generous. And there's asshole, and I'm sure there's asshole at the church, right? So it's all a question of, do you feel justified? And again, with Dante's Inferno, it was all a question of Dante did the thing that he did because he thought he was going to be forgiven. He knew that he was wrong, but I was going to be forgiven, right? And why are we going with that? Well, if we live in a simulation and you know that nothing matters, right? So for example, right? Example, I live in a simulation. We're going to go back to the example of Pokemon, which is how far we're going to go with Pokemon. And this is really cool. I'm going with Pokemon, right? And with Pokemon, again, the Pokemon Red and the AI. And in Pokemon, you're like, yo, I died, so I restart, right? There was no consequences to dying because we're going to be restarting. There was no consequences. So the AI was like, okay, well, there's no problem, right? But if you had only one life, like we do, we took care of it. But if we know that we're going to be reincarnated, or, and Dante's mindset, not that I want to die, right? Because that's not the case. But if I was to die, I would end up in heaven, which is the place I want to go. So why do I care if I die, right? It doesn't really matter. There's no real consequences to me dying, because I'll go to heaven, right? And that's kind of it. Simulation could be a way for people, for people to be like, fuck that. I don't care about this. I'm gonna do what I want, and if you're not happy, well, fuck you, right? And I think this is what's important. It's how do we, again, I'm going to repeat myself, but the question isn't do we live in a simulation? Now, the question is if we know we live in a situation, if tomorrow somebody told us, well, we're in a simulation, here's why, here's the reality as to why, here's the proof that we're living in a simulation, here's every single information that you need to prove it, right? And everybody would agree that we live in a simulation. How would that change people? Would people act in a different way now that life isn't our own? And I don't know. I don't know. But I do know is that we're gonna be ending the video here. I have to play the tower because we're in a tournament. I love you guys. I'll see you guys really soon. Take it easy.